All right, when you start InDesign, this is the workspace that you see. It has a home, which is where we are right now, and a learn, which is some tutorials. They're not a bad idea to look at them and do some of these. It'll help you out. There's also create for new file and an open button right here. We're going to do a file open from the main menu. And browse to where you've downloaded the files for the Classroom in a Book. In my particular case, my files are in my teaching folder, courses, and page layout. I've made a folder called CIB for Classroom in a Book. And here they are. We're going to starting on lesson 2. Lesson 1 was a refresher about tools and palettes. If you want to do that one, you can. It doesn't hurt. But if you're familiar with the Adobe environment, it's very similar to Photoshop and Illustrator in many ways as far as the layout goes. And that's pretty much what that first lesson is about, just understanding how palettes work and windows, and I'm assuming you do at this point. So we're going to start by opening up the start file. And it says in the lesson book that if there was a dialog box about files missing, that you should an alert that the document contains links or sources that have been modified or missing. Click the update button. I didn't get that, so I'm just going to move on. The first thing we want to do is go to Window and Workspace, and it is a set to Essentials. They say to go ahead and reset this workspace. It really didn't change anything for me. But if you have moved things around, it may be a good idea. I like to customize my workspace, so often mine won't look like it does normally, and I like it that way. So you can also, underneath this workspace, you can create a new workspace. If you've modified your workspace and you like it customized for yourself, you can go ahead and say new workspace and give it a name. We'll call it a print space, and say okay. And then you can see that that becomes a new space that's available. And it says at the bottom, reset print space if I needed to go back. Of course, I haven't really customized anything, so. All right. First thing we're going to do is save our file. So we're going to do save as and rename the file. In this case, O2 postcard. I like to put my initials. I'm going to do an underscore. Don't like spaces and names. That can cause confusion when designing on the web. And I'm going to switch folders. So I'm going to go to my page layout folder. And I'm going to make a new folder for myself called Comp Lessons. That way I have a place for my completed lessons. I'm going to create it, and I'm also going to create a new folder inside of that folder called my lesson 02. Great, and that's where I'll save my file. InDesign is automatically going to put a file extension on here for you called INDD, so you don't need to add that right now. And you can see if you look closely up in the left-hand corner, it does say .indd for InDesign document. That's the native file format for InDesign. Okay, we're going to go into view, scroll down to display performance, and make sure it's on high quality. There are several levels of display performance for this program, mainly because the images that we're using are can be very big in some cases, and if we have a high quality display performance and we have something that's, let's say, 20 or 40 pages long with lots of images and type, it can slow things down. In this case, if we look at our pages palette, there's only one page here. So it's not going to slow us down at this point. But if you open up a document and you do see that things don't look like they're good quality, and you imported that image from, let's say, Photoshop, and you know that it's a good high quality image, it could be that the display performance was set to a lower fast render or typical display. Okay, I say you can look at the finished document. We can look at that briefly. Okay, so the finished document has some additional imagery, some illustration, and type. It's fairly clean. Talking about grids, right? You guys should be able to see grids here, right? We've got how many? 1, 2 columns here, right? This column is split down at the bottom, and same thing going here, kind of balanced, right? We have these two images that overlap, but they're sort of in a left and right space, which makes sense. The space is a little awkward, but it's not bad. And we can also see from a horizontal standpoint that there is almost a sort of halfway point on the page, right? It's not as well defined because the text box kind of goes beyond that halfway point, and the images on the other side sort of come up about the same on a halfway point, but that's what creates some visual balance. When we're finished examining this file, we can close it. We don't need to save it if it asks. And go back to our postcard file. So we're going to come under type and scroll down to show hidden characters. And we're going to click the type tool in immediately after the word cafe and delete, backspace, and type in the word bistro. With the insertion point still in the type, I'm going to click 3 times to select bistro and bar. Locate the character controls in the properties panel at the right. Properties panel. And we're going to select bold from our typeface menu. And do a Command S, file save from the main menu. Take the selection tool and click a blank area of the pasteboard. Okay, I'm going to do a little zoom out for a second. So we have the pasteboard area here. This is an area where you can put things. The pasteboard area is much like working back in the day before we had computers. You literally put things on your desk next to your work that you were going to use, and away from the work area and things that you might be considering. That's why the pasteboard is here. It gives us a place to put objects outside of the actual document itself. But clicking on the pasteboard in this case deselects everything, and then we're going to do a file place. this is pretty important. It's Command D. You're going to be doing it a lot. This is how you bring in things to InDesign. Copying something from one document and pasting it into the InDesign document is dangerous for one, because it doesn't actually create a link, and that's what we need. We need to create a link that's saved to the actual physical thing. In this particular case, we're going to go to the lesson 2 folder and click the bistro docx file. So we're going to bring in a Word document, and I'll say open. So that path is something that it remembers, right? So it knows that the file that I'm about to place belongs or originates from the lesson 2 folder. And so when I save my file, it knows that path from where this is saved to where the document that I'm placing is. And in this case, my document is in my comp folder in my lesson 2 folder, but the document is coming from the original CIB folder. So it remembers how to find that document on my computer, and that's very important. So we're going to position the loaded text icon in the text frame and then click. So right now, let me go view guides and grids, show guides. There we go. So I'm going to go right into here. Oh, I think my document converted. Let me just make sure I'm in the right. I'm going to place my type in there first, but let me make sure I'm in the. That's where it was. I was still in preview mode. Okay, so let's switch back to normal mode. Now I can see them. Okay. Take the selection tool and select the text frame that now contains the type. So that's our active frame. Click the out port down here at the bottom. Let me zoom in a little bit. There's this little red out port right there. So we're going to click it, and that means there's overloaded text or overflowed text. So we're going to pick up the extra additional text and click in the text frame to the left or to the right. And again, we see that there's an overflowed text box, but we'll be solving that again later, right? So for now, let's save our file. Okay, working with styles. We're going to take the type tool and click in one of the text frames containing the newly imported type. So just click anywhere, it doesn't matter. And choose edit select all. So Command A, or you can do this select all, not a big scroller. Command A you use all the time, right? So Command A. Click the paragraph styles button at the top of the properties panel. And select body cap style to format the entire text. So body copy. And take the type tool and click the first line of the type in the story starters and small plates. Select the subhead style from the paragraph styles menu. And we want to do the same to entrees and desserts. So what's going on here? These are pre-formatted styles that have been saved. So sort of baked ahead of time, if you will, and saved into the paragraph styles panel. And I want us to deselect and do a Command S. Okay, formatting with the character style. It's very similar, styles, if you've used them in Illustrator, there are, again, sort of combination of elements in this particular case, a typeface, a type point size, and a color that have all been saved to do these subheads. So we're going to zoom in on the first text frame in the lower left where I already am, and take the type tool and select the words Rose Martini. Oops. And in the character controls of the properties panel at the right, select the italic from the type style menu. We're going to click the fill box to display the document's color swatches. And click the red swatch, named Red Bright. Click the pasteboard to deselect. And again, save. Take the type tool and select the words Rose Martini and the trailing comma. And choose type character styles to display the character styles panel. So type character styles. Select the new character style from the panel menu. So we're going to come up here and say new character style. And in this box, in the dialog box, we're going to name it red italic. And at the bottom of the new characters dialog box, we're going to select apply style to selection. And in the lower left-hand corner, deselect add to CC library. It's already it's not checked in my case. So I'm going to leave it the way it is. Otherwise, it saves up to the cloud. Click OK. Then take the type tool and select the word zucchini blossom. Fritters or braised dandelion greens in the first text frame. So we're going to go and on greens, and click red italic in the character style panel. Using the type tool, select the words orange, ginger, seared scallops, or chive flour flatbread. And do the same thing, red italic. So ways of creating shortcuts for styling type. Repeat the process, it says, for lavender honey grilled chicken or fresh basil pesto and violet macaroons and candied pansies. So and violet. Okay, click the character styles panel, groups close box, and then choose file save. So they want us to just say goodbye. Save our file. Command S, right? File, save. Fit page in Windows, Command 0. Okay, they show its view. Fit page in window, but you're going to be doing this so many times, and you should probably know it by now. And make sure no objects are selected, so you can do an edit, deselect all, or that's a Command Shift A. Again, another one we'll use a lot. Click the Import File button, the last option on the Properties panel at the right. Well, mine's all the way down at the bottom, so sometimes the text is a little off. In the Place dialog box, make sure Show Import Options is not selected. Show Imports option is deselected. Navigate to the Lesson 2 folder. It's where I am currently in my CIB folder. This is the path that I was saying, you know, remembers, right? When we placed something last time, it sort of remembered I was in here, I was in here, I was in here, and I picked this document, right? But this time we want the dining room JPEG. So we're going to go ahead and double click on it to open it. All right, so now it's in my loaded cursor. And we're going to position the loaded graphics icon in the intersection of the light blue and pink guides in the upper right quadrant of the postcard. So right here. And drag down to the right until the pointer touches the guide on the right side of the page. So this is something they want us to do, but I'm going to tell you a little something about this particular move right now. I'll undo it for 1 second, Command Z. I don't really know how big this particular image is. In other words, physically, how big is it in inches, and what is its resolution? I'll be able to tell that as soon as I placed it or done what we're about to do, which means it's going to fit in this area that they said because we drew it that way. But if I just click, look at this image, it's at least twice as big as what we did. I'm going to Command Z, undo it. And I'm going to go back to do what they said. And I'm going to briefly pause here because I want to talk about that. So I'm going to go back and pull it out to the guides like they indicated. Going to look at a window called links right now. So I'm going to scroll down to links. And I have this image selected. And if I look at, if you don't have this little drop down going here, you want to click on it and pull it out a little bit. It's going to tell us some important things about this image. We know it's a JPEG, not necessarily the preferred format for printing. It's an internet format. It's a format a lot of cameras use when they first save. JPEG has compression, and that's why it's one of the default images for cameras and things, but we'll talk more about that later. CMYK, that is the proper mode for printing for most of the time. Down here, though, is really important. This is the thing I'm talking about. The actual PPI of the image, okay, is 72. Next to it or below it is this thing called effective PPI. It says 403. That is because we didn't draw it out to its full size. We're sort of mashing the pixels together, if you will, because we can't, InDesign doesn't know how to do images. It knows how to create holes where images go, but it doesn't know how to change things about imagery. So it can't edit the image. So it has this 1024 by 682 dimensions of pixels, and it doesn't know what to do but just smash them closer together. And by doing that, it raises the amount of pixels per inch. So the output resolution is much higher than the actual image itself. In this particular case, that may be okay, but in the event that we did something like stretched it out even further than its actual size, then it would go lower than the 72. And if you are familiar with printing, the lower you get, the better or the worse quality the image is going to go. So this is not always a smart thing to do, and I'm going to, tell you more in class and instruction about. It's always good to place it at an expected resolution that's the document calls for. So you don't want to be messing around with this number, and this number should always match. Okay, so let's go back to where we were here in the tutorial. I'm going to close my links panel, a really important panel though. We're going to be using it a lot. In fact, maybe instead of closing it, I'll take this docket over here and I wanted to docket into that. There we go. Okay, I'll close my layers for now, but back to the properties panel. All right, so we drew out a box and basically sized it. One of the reasons why InDesign lets you do this is because when we're building a document like this, at first, we might not know exactly where we want our image. So we're drawing it out to sort of fit a space that we like, and we set up in our little grid. Later on, it would be smart to go back to Photoshop and resize this document, this image, to fit properly into the space at the proper resolution. But I'm going to move on. Using the selection tool, select the middle handle at the bottom of the graphics frame and drag it up. So we're going to get our selection tool and drag it up. Let's see. You can crop the image. Okay, so it's saying, oh, well, you can do this too, right? Another sort of dangerous move, if you will, we're going to find out that there's two frames here. One is the frame for the what we see, the crop in InDesign, that's the blue mark, and then there's the frame here for the actual picture. And I just clicked on the little donut in the middle, which is called the content, and it's showing me now that other box. Okay, and you can see it's got a brown outline here. That's the actual size of the picture. So if I'm only going to use this much of the picture, I should go to Photoshop and crop out the other portion. Otherwise, I'm just making my document bigger, bulkier than it needs to be. But it does allow you to do these things so you can make decisions while you're here in InDesign. And it's not a bad thing, but you should go back then and say, if I remember I cropped that window down, I should go cut that part of the image off to speed up, my document's processing. When it's time to print, all of these things are going to matter a lot. So I'm going to do a Command Z, go back to there. That's what they want us to do. And again, undo, right, is up here if you're not familiar with the menu, but Command Z, the Command key next to your space bar, plus C. Take the selection tool, position the pointer over the graphic to display the content grabber. Well, that's what I did before, right? We got over here and we see the content grabber is there. Click the content grabber to select the graphic. And then drag up to position the image within the frame. It says as you please. So they're just letting you know that, yeah, this is what that does. So the frame for the image is still here, right, on the outside, the blue line. But you can see the brown line along the edge of the image up at the top. That is delineating where the edge of the image actually is inside of the frame. So we have the space now, right? I'm going to go ahead and Command Z it back there. I think that's where it's supposed to be, and save our file. With just letting you know there are those two frames. Then it says do a fit page and window. I already believe I am, so I'm not going to do the Command 0, but you can if you moved yours. Take the selection tool and click the flower graphic. So we're going to move over here just a little bit. There's our flower graphic. Drag the graphic to the right of the headline, edible blossoms. So we're going to just bring it over here. With it still selected and the transform controls in the properties panel, click more options button. Oh, that's this one. Okay. And we're going to set in values of X of 1.85 and a Y of 0.05. So we'll just, oops, what happened? Delete 1.85 and a Y value of 0.05. I must have entered something odd. And a rotation angle of a -10. Again, I hate to be telling you all these things that you shouldn't be doing, but this is one of them. If I wanted to rotate a graphic, which I might, I would go and do it in this case, it would be Illustrator, and rotate this object-based piece of artwork. The only thing, it's object-based artwork. It's a little bit less dangerous as far as rotation as doing a rotation of an image. But in the long run, if I created the object-based art here in InDesign, this would probably be okay. It would not be a problem necessarily. It's less of a problem to deal with object-based art rotated than pixel-based art, which is definitely an issue, and you should always go back to Photoshop to do that, or whatever imaging program you have. Save our file. Okay, they want us to click on the pasteboard, deselect all. They want it to also hide our hidden characters, so we're going to go down to type, hide hidden characters. Click the direct selection tool. So A on the keyboard, right? And then click the white flower graphic. In the appearance controls of the properties panel, click the fill box. And when they want the dark green swatch to be selected, green, dark. And we're going to switch over to the selection tool. So V on the keyboard. And select the black horizontal line at the bottom of the page. So there's this stroked, looks like line. And in the appearance controls of the properties panel, click the stroke box. And again, click the green medium swatch this time. Click over on your pasteboard to deselect and save your file. Do Command 0 for view, fit page, in window. Oops, I do that a lot. Command O, Command 0. There we go. Choose window styles, object styles. And with that panel displayed, take the selection tool and click the text frame at the left containing the starters and small plate subhead. Click the green stroke and drop shadow style in the object style panel. So these were pre-made styles, just like our typed styles that we had before, but only for objects. And click the second text frame, entrees and desserts, and do the same. And then click the Object Styles panel, close box, and save your file. So we're going to exit out. Again, if we wanted to see these, we could just double click on that style itself, and it'll show the things that are that have been done to it. Just hit cancel, close this box out. Pre-flighting is the next section. So pre-flighting is a term used for checking our documents for that they're prepared for the process that they're going to finally be published in. So if something was going to be printed, we wanted to pre-flight it for a particular process. If it was going to go on the web, we would check it for certain characteristics. We wouldn't really throw a 300 ppi image out on the web. We'd want to make sure the resolution is 72, which is screen resolution, right? Well, the same thing here in print. We want to make sure that everything's ready. It's a little more tricky too with print because we want to make sure things are ready for the exact printing machine we have in pre-press is a sort of last position of a graphic designer in the workflow of printing a document. So when you go to a print shop or service bureau and you hand your files over, or if you go online and you send them up to a server, the first person that's more than likely going to open up your files and look at them is somebody who does pre-flighting or pre-press. And they'll be checking your document to make sure there's no mistakes, that they can't find anything that looks like it could be problematic. And a designer really has to do that because usually a person who's a graphic arts person, artist is somebody who runs a printing press. They don't necessarily have the background. They know how to run their machine, but they don't necessarily know the ins and outs of the design. Okay, so they want us to window output pre-flight. So go to window, scroll down to output, and let's look at pre-flight. InDesign has some pretty decent pre-flighting controls. There are standalone pre-flight programs. Some of you will be going into pre-press and printing processes, and you'll see some of those things. But you know, this is a pretty good control. So in this panel, we're going to select Mailhouse Embedded from the Profile menu. Mailhouse Embedded, it's already selected for me. This profile was supplied by the printer to ensure proper output. So they gave us this, and it was loaded in, right? Okay, so somewhere down here at the bottom, we see that there are 9 errors. That's what I have. To view the error, it says click the arrow next to color. So we're going to do our drop down and say, well, what's going on? And I believe we're going to open that up again. And it says color space not allowed. All right, so meaning that something is in a color space, perhaps the document we saw was CMYK, perhaps, or where did we see that? I don't remember. But if the document was CMYK, maybe we have RGB images or images in index color or some other format that is not allowed, and possibly even type, right? To display details for the error, click arrow next to info at the bottom of the pre-flight panel. So we're going to click down here. Okay, and we have to select something like text frame. And there it is, right? It's RGB color space in a document that's supposed to be something other than that, which more than likely I would assume is CMYK, right? And that's what it tells us. So we're going to go to window color swatches. And double click the red bright swatch. And select CMYK from the color mode menu. So it was RGB and we need to convert it, right? To CMYK. And then click OK. And do a fit page and window. Choose a pre-flight panel, swatches, and then choose files, or close, it says. So we can look back at a pre-flight panel and all of our errors are gone. They were all based on that one color. So we'll close out our pre-flight. We don't see anything now. It's green. Life is good. And we can collapse our swatches panel and save our file. So again, Command S. And then hold down the screen mode button at the bottom of the tools panel and select presentation. That's all the way down at the bottom here. Okay. So there's our finished document. It looks pretty good. Yeah, I don't see any major errors. Things are lined up. Then we're going to hit Escape on our keyboard to move out of that mode. And it says to view the document without layout aids, choose View Screen Mode Preview. So another way to get to these same things that are located down at the bottom. Choose View Actual Size. Okay. And then save your file. And there are some extras usually at the end of each one of these exercises. It has some exploring on your own, suggestions, move and resize objects, modify a paragraph. So if you want to do those things, that's great. And there's some hints over here on the InDesign best practices. It's good to read some of those. And what to avoid. I would also look at the review questions and the review answers at the end of the chapter. We are going to have 2 quizzes, and some of those questions from the quiz will be directly from this text. Okay, so what you need to do now is something they don't have you do, but I want you to do this, okay? We're going to do a file, and we'll scroll down to package. You're going to do this at the end of each one of these sort of sessions, if you will. Packaging, and we'll take a look at that right now, is going to lead you through some steps. What it is, some of you may have done it before in Illustrator, but what it does is it collects all of the objects that belong to this document. So remember, the type that we placed from the Word document was in a separate folder. It came from the actual lesson 2 folder, and we have our own folder where this document is saved. So currently, InDesign knows where that thing is. It knows how to find it and place it on the page. But what this is going to do, it's going to bring all the elements together. So it's going to collect the images. It's going to collect the type if it's external. It's going to collect illustrations, and it's going to put them all into one folder for us, so we don't, if you will, forget anything to bring to the print shop or to upload to the print shop. And you can see here in this first window, you would see errors. If there was anything wrong with the document, it's going to give you an overview. It says 0 missing as far as linked images. 0 uses RGB space, right? But if there were warnings here, you may stop and go back. And you can go through particular things if you want to know about the linked images in particular. So we'll keep it the summary. So there's a couple choices down here. Cancel, of course, means let's get out of here and go back and not do this. And you may need that if you needed to change something. A report document is going to generate a separate whole nother Word document that's going to describe sort of everything about this document. It's going to give you all this stuff all on one sheet. It's not a bad thing to do if you're going to a print shop. If they see something's missing, they can look on the report and say, wow, there's supposed to be this image here, and it's not here, because it says right on the report there's an image that's so big at this color space in this location. That even tells it, yeah, what page the image would be on. But we're going to continue and just say package. All right, it creates a folder automatically, and it names that folder, which is kind of it's excessive. I know it's a folder, but it's just reminding you, I guess, that you're making a folder. So I name my file O2_postcard_dy. So I'll just go ahead and let that be the name of my folder. I don't need the word folder there. By default, it's going to collect my fonts, my links, my update graphic links. If in fact I move something around and it knows where it is, it's going to sort of make a new link to where that is. So it's going to move them into our folder too. This is another thing it's going to have. It's going to move into postcard folder all those graphics from the other folder and then update their links. So save the location, right? Remember, that's really critically important that the InDesign document itself, the INDD, knows where all the supporting documents are that are on the page. I can't remind you enough, InDesign doesn't understand a lot of things. It doesn't understand images. It doesn't understand, illustrations that are from, it just has blank holes like rectangles and circles and whatever space we draw to put things in. That's what InDesign understands, and it understands what's in it, but it didn't make those things, it just placed them there. So because they come from outside, it has to remember how to get to those things, right? Otherwise, what will happen if we don't have our graphics, we'll end up with a really low resolution. Remember, I said everything on the page was really a thumbnail, 72 DPI thumbnail or PPI thumbnail that we can move around really quickly, right? Only when we say print does InDesign actually fill that hole with the real thing that may be high resolution. Okay, so that's good. It does this thing of creating an IDML. This is not a bad idea either. I would just leave that there. This is an InDesign markup language document. So that sounds fancy, but what it means is it's going to create a separate InDesign document that if somebody is working on a different version of InDesign than your version, and they don't have the latest 2020 version, they have an older version, they'll be able to open your IDML document and then see your content and create a new document off of that. So there won't be a problem. More than likely, they'll hopefully be up to date and they won't need it, but it's a great backup. So if you don't have the latest version of InDesign, you always want to make sure you generate that. The PDF, that's up to you. I mean, sometimes printers want the PDF, which is, PDF portable document format is a embedded format. So everything is embedded on the page. So it's not dependent on anything from the outside. Your printer may ask you for that. Again, it's a really small document, so it doesn't hurt to generate it, even though it probably won't be used in the printing process at all, if that's not what they want. All right, so with all that said, we're going to hit I know, that was a lot. We're going to hit the package button. And we get this disclaimer window. And if you read this, it's talking about a license agreement. And what it means is it's there because Adobe does not want to be responsible for you breaking copyright license, you taking something that doesn't belong to you, like typefaces, images. So it's just saying hey, whatever's on this page, we have nothing to do with it. You put it here. So, you know, if it gets printed and a copyright infringement comes up, it's not our problem. It's your problem. And they're right, because typefaces have licenses. You may not know that, but if you look really closely, there are, and there's a fine for taking these things. So what your print shop's going to do is they're going to copy your typefaces, put them on their computer, print your job, and then get rid of them. That's pretty standard practice. But as far as the images, they're either original images or they're images that you have to be able to prove that you purchased. We'll talk a little bit more about copyright as we go along. At any rate, you're just going to say okay to this. And you see it takes a minute to do it. And if we go to minimize this, minimize all my windows. Actually, I can just possibly just do this. Click on one of my open windows I have on my desktop. Make sure I'm in page layout, which I am, and I'm going to go to my comp lessons, my lesson 2 folder. Is that where I saved it? Uh-oh. Did I put it in my CIB? There it is. It went to the wrong folder. I should have been paying attention, but that's fine. It's great because I can then push it back and put it where I wanted it to be in my lesson 2 folder. Okay, so now I know where it is, and there it is, postcard DY. If I take a look at this folder, it has the IDML right there, the INDD right there. So this is the main folder. These are outside, okay? So when you open up the project folder, this is what I would give my print shop, this O2 postcard DY. They're going to open up the INDD file, and you can see it's made the PDF for me. So all of these are outside in the open, and then in subdirectories are the typefaces, right? In the document fonts, and arranged nicely in another folder are all the images that belonged on the page. So that's great. You know, InDesign did all that work for us, made everything nice and neat, so we didn't have to run around. If you had your images in a bunch of different folders, often when I do a job, I'll have a folder for things that I'm using. I'll have a folder I call unused, you know, because there may be things that I might use, but I'm not sure if I'm going to use them. And at the end, when you package, even if I took something from my unused folder and used it, InDesign will know and grab it and put it into the package, which is really nice feature. Saves a lot of time. So what I want you to do at this point, most of you are familiar with this idea of compressing. I'm going to control or right click onto the postcard folder, this thing. And I'm going to scroll down to compress and let go. And it created now a zip folder, right? Or a zip document. So here it is. This is what we're going to put on Canvas, right? We're going to take this zip document and put it up. You don't need the rest of this stuff, just this. So you go into your lesson 2 and in the tutorials and drop this in the Canvas, and then I'll know you did your assignment. Okay, so that's the end of, and you'll be doing this for every one of the tutorials in the book, and you'll be doing this when you do your projects. You'll be compressing your files. So you're going to do this a lot over and over again. When I say I want something from you on Canvas, you're going to compress it, make it small. I mean, something like a Word document generally is so small it's not a problem, but most of the time we're working with a bunch of images, type, objects. So put them all in a folder and compress them, right? Okay, the end. And that's lesson 2.